When you wore the former hat as CEO of CKE, you fought against raising the minimum wage. So if wage growth is what we need, increased wages, have you changed your opinion on that?
No, actually, that's not true. For the last couple of years, I've been encouraging the National Restaurant Association and the International Franchise Association to get behind an increase in the minimum wage. What I oppose, and I still oppose, is an increase in the minimum wage that kills jobs. If you get to the point where you're killing jobs, then you're really acting counter to what you're trying to do, which is to help working class Americans. $15 an hour clearly kills a lot of jobs. The Congressional Budget Office a couple years ago said $10.10 an hour would kill 500,000 jobs. We have to find a balance where we're increasing wages, and we should increase them, but we're not taking away the jobs that people need to get on the ladder of opportunity. So there was a lot of publicity about my being opposed to any increase in the minimum wage. It just wasn't true.
But if a border adjustment tax is off the table and we still participate, which we will, in the global economy, how is it that we're going to put pressure on companies to actually increase wages? If you can get labor costs, if labor costs continue to be much lower overseas, what pressure can you put on companies now to pay the employees more? I mean, the disparity between CEO and worker pay has never been greater.
Well, the disparity between CEO and worker pay has been driven in large part by some huge incomes by people like a Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs while he was still alive, or Bezos at Amazon. You've got these really spectacular companies that have done a lot of good for America, but you've got CEOs who make a lot of money in that respect. As far as keeping jobs in the United States, I think one is if we can reduce the number of illegal immigrants or low-wage working immigrants, if we can reduce those numbers and find Americans to fill those jobs, I think you're going to see wages go up. And if we can generate economic growth so there are more jobs in this country, so we have employers competing with each other for employees as opposed to employees competing for jobs, that's what drives wages and benefits up. And I think we could easily have that situation with a tax plan that generated economic growth. And I think that's what the president is proposing.
And why does it make sense to take the corporate tax rate from 35% down to 15%? We know that comparatively speaking, we've got a high rate. But when you actually look, very few companies are really paying that 35%. I mentioned it earlier. You were talking about CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg, like Steve Jobs. Companies like IBM, who have missed sales for 20 consecutive months, they're not paying it. Last month, they got a tax credit. They got CEOs getting paid $33 million, and they're not paying 15%. So unless you have a flat tax where my mom and dad, who can't necessarily afford to pay for a tax specialist, they're getting the short end of the stick. And as long as corporate America has tax gurus who can find those loopholes, because those loopholes aren't going away, why do they need to go to 15%? You're just going to jack up the deficit.
Well, I think two things. One is we want to get the corporate rate down so that we're not seeing the number of corporate inversions that we're seeing, which is where corporations go overseas to take advantage of a lower tax rate.
So just give them a penalty.
If what you're saying is right, then corporations wouldn't be going overseas to see those rates. Now, there are corporations that take advantage of loopholes in the tax code, such as IBM, as you just mentioned, not paying tax. For those corporations, actually, going to a 15% rate and reducing deductions and loopholes, which is what this plan is supposed to do, that would increase taxes for those corporations. So you would punish the people who are taking advantage of the system now, but you would lower the rate so that people weren't encouraged, people that don't take advantage of the system wouldn't be encouraged to incorporate overseas. So I think a 15% rate, even if it went to 20%, but a rate in that range would be huge for American businesses. It would keep business here. It'd be great for American workers. There'd be more jobs. And you would encourage corporations to either pay the right amount of tax or stay in the United States, both of which are good.
I have to ask you, when I look at Jeb Bush now, spending his time buying the Marlins with Derek Jeter, he might be saying, I'm pretty stoked I'm not president. You were in a position where you may have been labor secretary. Do you wish you were?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it was a job I was preparing for my entire career. I'm very disappointed that I'm not. And even watching the State of the Union address, which with people down there that had been friends of mine for a long time, like Rick Perry and Ryan Zinke and Wilbur Ross, people that I just met during the process, and being at home, sitting on a couch drinking a glass of wine with my wife and watching it on TV, it was you know, it was disappointing in one respect. On the other hand, being at home drinking a glass of wine with your wife isn't such a bad thing. But
That's true,
I do
but
wish I was in D.C.
3 days later, when that president, after he gave that strong State of the Union address, he woke up and he tweeted that the former president hacked him. That wouldn't have been a headache for you?
Well, look, a lot of the things that Donald Trump has said, people criticize very heavily, but then you find out that they had some legitimacy. I remember during the
So you think President
debates,
Obama wiretapped him?
No, but we did find out that people in the administration were, I don't know if they were wiretapped or hacked, what the right word would be, but we did find out that that there were some things going on that maybe wouldn't be considered appropriate in that respect. So he says these things, and you do find out that, in fact, there's some basis for them.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.